Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Life Debate.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm James MacPherson with Danica, Giorgio and Caleb Bond, who is very happy because his football team are back on the winners list.
Oh, absolutely thumped Essendon yesterday. It was magnificent. Now, to be fair, it was Essendon.
Indeed.
But it was a nice little margin booster. We're into fourth on the ladder now, the Adelaide Crows. So, you know, it's all looking good.
Should we talk about the West Coast Eagles, Danica?
No. I stopped talking
Say
about
no
the
more.
West Coast Eagles a very long time ago.
Should we talk about North Melbourne, James?
Yes, North Melbourne are finishing 13th this year, which is the best we've done in about 6 years.
Fantastic.
So we're the only people that
Congratulations.
finishing 13th makes us
Or should that
feel...
be commiserations?
No, we're happy.
Yeah, it's
13th
good.
is great.
Yeah.
Here's what's coming up on the program tonight. Pauline Hanson bans unfriendly media outlets from her press conference. Good move from a woman sick of being pushed around, or a dangerous precedent that endangers democracy? The ABC airs a segment on space travel claiming the moon is part of, and I quote, Indigenous sky country. Turns out there's no escaping inclusion and diversity, not even at 384,000 kilometres above the Earth. And the New Zealand Greens declare that English is a, quote, bastard language, as they oppose a move to recognise English as one of the country's official languages, which is an interesting position for people expressing their opposition in English. We'll get to all of that in a moment, but first, should parents use trackers to monitor their children's whereabouts? There was a report in the Courier Mail today that warned that parents who use smart tags and iPhone apps to track their kids' whereabouts risk stunting their children's independence. The report also warns that tracking your children could normalise coercive control. Give me a break. Next, they'll slam parents who insist their children eat their vegetables for creating eating disorders, or they'll slam parents who put misbehaving kids in timeout for creating separation anxiety. Parenting begins with holding on and it ends in letting go. Some parents never learn the first, others never learn the second, but it's a process of control and release. You exercise total control over a baby because, well, a baby can't control anything, but by the time that baby is a young adult, well, mum and dad have gone from controllers to advisors. Tracking a 6-year-old is very different to tracking a 21-year-old. Every parent knows this. Danica, I think it's only the experts who seem to be confused.
No, I disagree. I do not support the idea of tracking your child. Whatever happened to trust? What, would you track your two sons?
Well, my two sons...
Do you have an app that
No,
you
my
track?
sons are 21 years old, so I don't track them. But I would certainly be thrilled if, when I had kids who were 4 and 5 and 6 years old and going for a ride on their bike, and I could know their exact whereabouts at any moment, I would do that in a heartbeat.
But 4 or 5-year-old kids are not riding their bikes solo, are they? Are they not there with mum and dad with parental supervision?
When my kids were 5 and 6 with their mates, they'd ride around the street on their bikes because it was a quiet area.
Right.
And this is the irony,
well,
right?
I would... I'm not disagreeing with that, but I would...
Gee, I won the argument quick tonight.
Jeez,
It's
well
record
done,
time on the late debate.
I would assume that most parents would be supervising their children at 4 and 5 if they're going off on a bike.
When my kids were in grade 1, grade 2 and grade 3, the school was only like a short... We could actually see the school from our front doorstep.
Right.
But again, if I could have known exactly where they were just to be sure, of course I would have done
fine. From a young age, but I think that gets to a certain age where you've got to stop tracking your kids and ensuring trust, because otherwise I do not think that it allows for open lines of communication. And to be honest, I think it's an invasion of privacy as well, especially around those teenage years where you're already confused, there's so much going on in your life. To have mum and dad then track you, I think that causes more problems than good. I think the best way is to open lines of communication, be upfront, be that parent who understands and wants to talk to their children, especially when that kid says, Mum, I'm going to the movies with this friend, this is where I'll be, that you trust that that's where your child is at all times. I don't agree with this culture of it's almost like a big brother culture. And if you actually read this article, there's a psychologist that's quoted in it, and she says that there is no evidence that this device makes kids safer, and often they actually increase parental anxiety.
Well, that's easy for a psychologist to say that, but even if they don't make kids safer, they do advise parents where your child is, and I defy any parent, especially of anyone up to the age of 13 or 14, who would be disinterested in knowing where their child was. And in terms of trust, I know we've got to bring you in a second, Caleb, but...
Oh, no, I'll just sit here, you go on.
Trust is earned as well. So one parent might very well say, I would never track my 13-year-old, and that would be fine. And another parent might say, because I love my 13-year-old so much, I'm absolutely tracking them, because it's a balance of parental release of kids, but also kids earning trust to be released. I think that's pretty common sense.
Frankly, I think it's weird, and I think it robs the opportunity to develop that independence and lack of reliance on a parent that I think is really important to work out in teenage years. I mean, we already have kids staying at home much longer than they ever used to. I feel like children grow up a lot slower now than they used to, and part of that is the way that we've set up the education system and encouraging kids that they must go off to university and they stay at home with their parents for longer, and so their childhood is essentially being extended. And this feels to me like something that very much says you are under the thumb. I mean, how did we survive to this point without children being tracked 24/7? Back in the day, when you were a child, it would have still been very common, James, and not all that long ago, to be fair.
Thank you.
That in the school holidays,
Yeah.
you know, you'd be out on your bike in
Yeah.
the morning with your mates.
Yep.
And Mum said, be home for tea.
Yep.
That was it. You know, you were out all day. And were you being tracked? Of course you weren't being tracked.
Do you reckon Daniel Morecambe's parents wish they had a tracker on Daniel?
Oh, I don't think that's.
I don't think
that is
that's not
a
a
fair
comparison.
point to.
No, I
so,
think that's-
so you're telling me that you are telling me
Just
no,
saying,
no,
they say there's no evidence that helps kids' safety.
Yeah, sorry,
That
James,
might have helped police.
So what you were suggesting is that if it saves one life, potentially, it probably doesn't save a life, to be honest. It might lead you to where a body has been taken, but it's not necessarily going to save any kid's life. That then justifies mass surveillance of children.
No, that's ridiculous. I'm not saying that at all. But would you say that if you had a primary school kid who was catching the bus home from school, as many primary school kids do, that as a parent it would be wrong for you to have a tracker on your child or an app on your phone so that you could just monitor it when you're at work to just make sure they got home safely? You think that's coercive? You think that's controlling? That's a loving parent who's trying to be responsible for my child and just ensure their welfare.
OK, you could maybe make an argument up to the age of 10. After that, I think it's rubbish. I don't understand. As a teenager,
Yeah.
Having the ability to go out into the world and your parents giving that to you and saying, yes, you can go out with your mates and you can go to the shops on your own, all these sorts of things, are formative experiences in life. And they set you up for the rest of your life and how you interact with the world. And I think if you've always got this sort of, you know, big brother breathing down your neck, trying to see where you are at every moment, it doesn't do much to create trust. I mean, I had a mobile phone. Mum could text me, call me, whatever she wanted. I'll answer and tell her where I am.
I push back on your characterisation of loving parents as big brother breathing down your neck.
I
That's
think
not,
it is. No, I think it is, James. I honestly
that's an
think it
abusive
is.
parent. That's
No,
very
it's
different
not.
to a parent who's simply exercising.
No, but there would be parents who would take it to the extreme, and they would
there
say, they would look at the. Well, hang on a second. You said that you were going down to the shops, and you are 1K away. Where
Yes.
are you,
Okay.
Mum, Dad? I'm just down the road. There's, you know, I
went for a walk.
I went for a walk down the road, Mum and Dad. It's really not that big. Yeah, but and then suddenly you're in an argument over absolutely nothing. When again you've closed off the lines of communication because you don't trust your own child, and then in turn, as a child, oh, mum's bagging me out again, mum, and it just creates more problems than good.
The problem I have with that is you are basing your argument. The problem with your scenario is a dysfunctional parent, not the tracker.
No, but I think it leads to it, James.
How
I
did
think it
parenting
leads.
work up until this point?
And the other
how
thing
do we
is
survive all these years?
Surely you've got to allow your child to have a level of independence, especially around their teenage years.
That's my entire argument, that as your child grows, you know, when they're a baby, you exercise total control, right? You have to. Then as a toddler, you let them make certain choices within pretty strict parameters. Then as a child, you allow them to learn responsibility by giving them tasks and trusting them. And then as a teenager, you let them make mistakes within a context of those mistakes are not going to be catastrophic for their lives. And then as young adults, you don't exercise any control. You're just there to
But
provide
you're
advice.
thinking worst case scenario.
No, I'm thinking this is the process of parenting, and every child is different because some kids are naturally rebellious, and if you love them, gee, I've got to keep a handle on this kid before he destroys his life. Other kids, at a very early age, are just inherently responsible, and you can take your hands off earlier. And I think parents know that. Experts who issue point-blank edicts and say no parent should ever do this, I think are talking outside their own lane.
I just think that I can understand your argument for when they're younger, when they're under a certain age, but I think there comes a time when they reach their teenage years where you've just got to let them make their own mistakes and learn from them without mum and dad breathing down your neck and monitoring your every move.
And it's just the tracking thing, I just find it really odd. I wouldn't even do it for a partner. I wouldn't want to be tracked, and I wouldn't expect to have their location at any given moment of the day. If I want to know where it is, I'll send you a text. You know, oh, where are you? Oh, you know, down the shops, whatever. Like, there's something really uncomfortable
You've just
to me.
introduced a whole... tracking a partner and tracking your primary school child are two completely different discussions.
Yeah, sure. Primary school child is a very different thing. But there's something really odd about... Because it's people are doing this with teenagers, James.
Some teenagers probably need to be tracked.
Well, if they need to be tracked, you shouldn't let them out the house in the first place. Like, come on, if it's that much of a problem where they're going,
hey,
if you know that they're leaving the house to go places they shouldn't go, maybe lock them in.
There are certain parts of this country where if parents paid more attention to where their kids were, the crime rate would be lower. It's a parental issue, number one. We say that all the time, and now we're saying, oh, parents shouldn't exercise any control. You can't have it both ways.
Again, right. I think you're just thinking worst-case scenario.
We'll stop all the youth crime with the trackers. I'm not sure that is the case. So now, obviously, you've probably seen today in Victoria that One Nation and Pauline Hanson, its national leader, have announced their slate, or some of their candidates that will be running in the state election in November. You've seen many of them throughout the evening talking to other hosts here on News24. But, of course, one of the most interesting aspects of this press conference was that a number of media outlets were banned from entering. The Guardian, the ABC and The Age were all told that they couldn't come in for the announcement. Therefore, they wouldn't be able to ask questions of Pauline Hanson or any of the candidates or the man who was announced as the new leader of One Nation in Victoria, Warren Pickering. Here is Pauline Hanson addressing this.
ABC were denied entry into here, and The Guardian. I'm not putting up with their rubbish. I'm not putting up with their spin, their lies whatsoever.
Elaborate on that just a little bit. We expect and invite a healthy amount of scrutiny of our candidates and our policy positions. However, any blatant character assassination attempts based on fabrications of our candidates will be met with swift legal action.
Now, look, I understand being upset with outlets that continually misquote you or try to cause trouble. This has been a common thing in politics for a very long time. Now, Donald Trump, of course, we know likes to talk about the fake news. But Donald Trump, to my knowledge, doesn't exclude people as a rule. He just tells them to their faces that he doesn't like them, including this example from overnight.
You said the intro weapon, I'm with ABC News. You said the intro...
BBC?
ABC.
Oh, ABC, that's worse.
You said the intro
I like
weapon
BBC better than ABC, actually.
His comic timing is just so good, isn't it? I'm not sure that this actually does anything to help One Nation specifically. I would have thought just, you know that they're going to rubbish you anyway, whether or not they're in the room or outside of the room, so you may as well let them in so you can have a bit of a barney with them. I would have thought it would create good content for social media and whatever, having an argument with a reporter. I'm not sure it actually achieves anything by banning people from certain outlets.
No, I agree. I actually think it makes you more open to criticism, if anything, if you do ban media outlets. And it also takes the focus off the party, because then these media outlets are just going to start writing up a lot of articles saying we were banned, the reporter, my experience being banned from the One Nation press conference, and suddenly it becomes this giant media circus. The focus gets taken off the actual messages that were meant to be portrayed in this One Nation press conference. But I think that if you allow media in, even if you don't agree with them, it allows you then to argue your point. Like, had there been a Guardian or an ABC journalist in there who had asked a ridiculous question, well, Pauline Hanson could have then pushed back and they could have gone back and forth. And then if the ABC mistook anything, wrote an article about it, Pauline Hanson could have said, well, hang on a second, I've got the transcript of the interview. They've completely misrepresented my words and what I have said. I do think it goes down a very, very dangerous pathway when you do start blocking media. I understand the Liberal media, they're biased. I understand that there is an agenda against right-wing parties like One Nation. I totally understand that. But have the transparency and be open to saying, no, come in, but we're going to have a debate with you.
Well, I disagree with both of you. I think this is a good move from One Nation and from Pauline Hanson. And I don't agree that banning the ABC is a lack of transparency. It's drawing a line. For years, the media have demanded that politicians should be accountable. Well, now a politician, Pauline Hanson, is saying, well, it works both ways, guys. You media need to be accountable. And when you get the ABC, The Guardian and The Age repeatedly going against One Nation and Pauline Hanson in a way that is not reporting the news, it's attacking One Nation because of an ideological bias, then I think Pauline Hanson is well within her rights to say, you know what, you don't get to be in the press conference. And here's why she's smart. She's recognising that this is not about democracy, this is about business. And CNN learned this the hard way with Trump, that they hated Trump, but they came to realise they relied upon Donald Trump, right, for their business. It drove their business well. Pauline Hanson recognises the ABC, The Guardian, The Age, they need to be in these press conferences. It hurts them to not be. And so she's decided, you keep hurting us, we'll hurt you right back. It's a transaction. We'll just stop trading with you. I think it's a good move.
But look what Donald Trump does over in the US when you've got people like, you know, Caitlin Collins from CNN sitting in the White House press briefing room. He will argue with her. And it makes for good theatre because he pushes back at her assertions and back at her stupid comments.
But I think Pauline Hanson is wise not to engage in that because...
Why?
I think Pauline Hanson needs to, if anything, just soften her image with the Australian public. And I think a Pauline Hanson doing a Donald Trump with the media... there's a better way to handle the media.
Why should she soften her public image? It's working for her as it is at the moment.
It's working for her with 30% of the population, but to become the Prime Minister, she's got to win people that are on the fence or a little bit iffy with her. And so I don't think engaging in stand-up fights with the media is the best thing. I think better have them outside the room.
But I'm not sure that even really helps in that endeavour either, because it potentially shrinks the audience that might then be exposed to her content.
That's a good point.
And the other thing I would say as well is that I don't think it actually particularly hurts an ABC or The Age or The Guardian by not being in the room, because a press conference is basically ubiquitous content. There'll be an AAP or a wire service in there, you just rip their copy, right? So it's not like you can't report on the thing, it's just that you couldn't have your reporter in the room to ask the question, or a question that they might have wanted to answer. So I'm not sure it does hurt the outlets, to be perfectly honest. I think it just it comes across as a little bit petty.
OK, but if it doesn't hurt the outlets, then they shouldn't be making this, oh, it's a threat to democracy and this is a lack of transparency. If it's true what you're saying, it doesn't hurt them, then it doesn't hurt them to be outside the room, so they can stay outside the room. And in terms of Pauline Hanson getting her message out, I think One Nation have proved, as have those in the UK and those on the right in the United States, that you can bypass the mainstream
OK,
media.
What happens if the Greens were holding a press conference and they said we don't want anyone from News24 coming to this press conference because we don't agree with their views? We would have an absolute field day on this channel with it. It would be the greatest fodder we've ever had.
Yep.
It's exactly the same for The Guardian, The Age and the ABC.
Do you think it would change a vote for the Greens, though?
I don't necessarily think it would necessarily change a vote for the Greens, but the point is the focus is off the message of the Greens or whatever the party is trying to sell, and suddenly it becomes a circus on the other side, is what I'm trying to say.
I reckon Pauline Hanson would rather have the media making an issue of the fact they're not allowed in the room, which begs the question, why not, than be in the room and making mischief with all sorts of ridiculous questions.
Well, look, I don't know. I do worry about going down that line as a former reporter myself, the thought of being blocked from a room. I don't like
Danica,
that.
You're lovely. Everyone would want you in the press.
Oh, thank Thanks, James. Thank you.
Geez, she's easy, isn't she? Oh,
Do you think he was winding me up?
geez, it's like, a little scratch behind the ears.
Oh,
and then
come off it,
Danica's like,
Caleb.
oh, James,
Oh,
thank
come
you
off it,
so
Caleb.
much.
I'm actually nice. Unlike my fellow
Oh.
co-panelists here, I'm actually quite
I just
nice.
paid you a compliment and then you burned me.
Now I wasn't sure if you were being facetious based on
Never.
Caleb's commentary there. OK, let's move on. Now, we always hear about always was, always will be Aboriginal land, but have you ever heard of always was, always will be the moon? No, neither have I, actually, up until a couple of days ago on the ABC. Rebecca Allen is an astronomer. She is the co-director of the Space Technology and Industry Institute at Swinburne University of Technology. Now, she was brought on to the ABC to talk about a space rocket, a SpaceX rocket, which is set to slam in the moon on Wednesday after about a year in orbit. Now, the conversation was going really well. The interview was great, at a point when she was asked about the impact of growing problem of space junk, to which you would think, OK, great, a very basic answer of space junk. Instead, well, she delivered a bit of a tirade.
The moon is something that's fascinated us. You know, it's deeply rooted to Indigenous, sky country and storytelling. And so we want to respect the fact that this is not just something for us to go and explore, as amazing as that is. And so I think it's actually a big focus for global space regulation, as well as understanding Australia's growing role in space exploration.
Sorry, let me just get this right. The moon is Indigenous sky country? The moon is now subject to what an Aboriginal land claim is part of Aboriginal land. I'm not sure where she was going. I actually watched that last little bit of that clip to make sure that the ABC presenter at the time didn't push back or ask more questions. No, they wrapped up the interview immediately after that, so that there was no pushback. International law says that the moon belongs to nobody, that the moon is no one's. Are these the sorts of universities that are teaching our next generation this sort of absolute nonsense? I don't even have an explanation for it, to be quite honest. Maybe perhaps one of you, do you?
Well, I just, it's a shame that old Blue Eyes and Tony Bennett aren't still alive, because, they'd have to re-record "Fly Me to the Indigenous Sky Country, let me play among the Indigenous Sky Country stars."
That's beautiful.
It's what a shame that we didn't get to hear those renditions. I mean, this is just, it's woo-woo spiritual stuff, right?
You've hit the nail on the head.
And in any other circumstance, it would be laughed out of the room.
Yep.
But for some reason, we go, because this is an Indigenous version of woo-woo spiritualism, it's fantastic. And I always thought this at school, because, we were taught about the dream time and all this stuff. I'm going, what the hell are they talking about? Like, this is obviously garbage. But because it is an Indigenous thing, we go, OK, well, that's fine. We'll treat it as though it were real. It's no more legit than any other version of woo-woo spiritualism. But because it's attached to some Indigenous culture, we go, well, it's special. I hate to break it to you, it's not. And it deserves no more regard than a woman, and I'd say woman, I'm sorry, because generally it does seem to be women, who put their crystals out to recharge in the sun. And
What's wrong with that?
Oh, well, it's just crap. I mean, come on. You don't do that, do you, Danica?
Oh, well, I have my beliefs about
Yeah,
things,
well,
Caleb.
look, it's just rubbish. And you'd quite happily go, oh, well, a woman recharging her crystals in the sun. What drugs did you take?
Do you remember Peter Brock had crystals in his 05 Holden at Bathurst? Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went real woo-woo towards the end of
Well,
his...
that's, whatever floats your boat, I suppose.
Yeah.
But we're not making decisions about what we do in space because Peter Brock had crystals in his car, are we?
This is funny and ridiculous, and you're right. It's sky country means this is a spiritual discussion, right? But it actually does have consequences for everybody, whether you believe in spirituality or whatever. Because the Christian West became great and we became prosperous because we believed the moon is a thing. And it's a thing because God made it, as opposed to Indigenous spirituality, which doesn't say the moon is just an object. It says it's a spiritual entity. Now, that has consequences. If the moon is created by God, then it's for us. It points to God. So the more we explore the moon, the more we find out about God. That's what prompted the West's scientific endeavours, if you go right back to the beginning of modern science. But if you take the Indigenous route, the moon is a spiritual entity. It contains God. It's sacred. Therefore, we have to be very careful in what we do with it. And so now you're asking for permission to explore the moon. And how far can we explore it? Because, you know, we don't want to... And so that's a dead end in terms of prosperity, expansion of knowledge, scientific endeavour, if you go down the spiritual route of... And it's not just Indigenous spirituality, but all those old pagan religions end up at a dead end in terms of scientific knowledge. It's only the Christian faith that prompted science. If everything is made by God, then it must be able to be understood. Therefore, we should investigate it, and investigating creation helps us understand the world, God, and ourselves. That's what prompted modern science. The idea that the moon is part of sky country and it's spiritual actually then means... So what do? You either give it symbolic spirituality, where you say, you know, before we travel to the moon, we acknowledge, you know, this is Indigenous lunar territory.
All that.
Or you give it ethical significance, where you say, well, we're going to go to the moon, but first we'll consult some Indigenous lunar groups who can advise us. Or you go full hog and you say, you know what, before we do anything on the moon, we've got to get Indigenous approval. And that's where the West is going. And you cannot tell me that that's going to result in an expansion of scientific knowledge like we've seen when the West was based on Christianity.
I don't have an issue with necessarily the spirituality side of things, but I do have an issue with now it being claimed by groups. That's the problem for me.
I'd go with the option of the moon is a great big rock in the sky, and we'll leave it at that, shall we?
Exactly. All right, speaking of Indigenous issues, there's a big argument in the New Zealand Parliament at the moment about the English language. Now, the official languages of New Zealand are Maori and New Zealand Sign Language. English has never been an official language, even though it's spoken by 95% of the population. But the Conservative government and the Labor opposition want to make English the third official language. The Greens oppose it, and here's Green MP Tamantha Paul speaking against the bill to make English an official language of New Zealand.
English is a bastard language. This is what you're fighting to protect, is a language that's not even its own. It's a bastardisation of Greek, Old Norse, Latin. It's a complete bastardisation, and this is what we're wasting the House's time fighting for?
I've got to say, for a complete bastardisation of language, it served her pretty well. I didn't agree with her point, but I understood it. And guess what? Everyone in New Zealand understood exactly what she was saying. Thank God for English. It helped her make her point.
And is there a language on earth that has not taken words or elements of its language from another language? And maybe some really old Indigenous languages didn't, but then presumably if you have different tribes of Indigenous groups, they then end up sharing words and they end up in other languages. Like, language isn't always has been a fluid thing and has always been influenced by outside sources. So I don't know that there would be a single language on earth that wasn't, in her terms, a bastard language, because we've all borrowed words from each other for time immemorial. All this means, basically, is that it has the same legal standing, English, as sign language and Maori, which means it has to be on road signs and things like that. What's wrong with that?
Well, she was actually mocking English-speaking people. And let's be honest, she was probably elected by a majority English people over in New Zealand. And it just makes me wonder, what is it with the left that they just hate anything to do with Western history, Western culture? And this is why culture wars actually matter, because you've got people like this trying to tear down the history and the cultures that make a country so wonderful and so great. English is a global language. English is used in business, in finance, in books, in movies. I mean, it is the function of modern society. It is built around the English language. I'm just not sure where these people come from, really.
Well,
New Zealand.
Exactly.
Apparently.
Well, it's not just the English language she hates. To be fair, we've got to give her due. She hates the police as well.
If I was a cabinet minister?
If I was a cabinet minister?
Like, Wellington people do not want to see police officers everywhere. It makes them feel less safe.
Oh, my goodness. So she's a socialist as well. We're seeing the socialist revolution suddenly taking over the whole world. So you've got this woman in New Zealand, you've got Ma'am Dani over in New York. Pedro Sanchez in Spain, and look what has happened to his country right now.
I think she's just a fan of the word bastard because, of course, you know, these anti-cop people will say ACAB, which stands for all cops are bastards, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, yeah, you'll often see it scrawled as graffiti on, you know, walls and
I thought
stuff
they just
around the
didn't
place.
want an Uber.
I want a cab. Very good, James. Anyway, yes, what a strange individual. Over to the UK now, where, speaking of strange, apparently people in the police, and this is now expanding out to other places like councils and stuff, non-Muslims are being encouraged to participate in Ramadan. They're being encouraged to fast at Ramadan like their Muslim colleagues are. Now, look, if you told me to go and fast, I'd probably tell you to stick it up your jacksie. It's up to you. If that's your religion, you can do whatever you want. And, of course, in a country like the UK or Australia or other Western nations where you have the freedom to practice your religion, if you want to fast from dawn till dusk, that's fine. Go ahead. But why would you then expect that other people would come along and do it with you? Now, of course, this is all done in the name of diversity. One of the mobs that has been doing it in England is the West Midlands Police. And a local council, the New Forest Council, has picked up on this and pointed out this little tract of information in its most recent diversity training. They say during the month of Ramadan, the West Midlands Police supports its fasting colleagues through the use of flexi working arrangements to ensure that they have time with their families. So now you're introducing extra privileges for people in the workplace because of their religion. What's more, increasing numbers of non-Muslim staff have taken up fasting each year as an act of solidarity with their Muslim colleagues, adding to the family feel of the West Midlands Police culture. What? I don't understand. If you're not Muslim, why would you then subject yourself to the religious workings of someone? I really don't get it. The West Midlands Police, they say West Midlands Police said the practice helped officers understand the significance of Ramadan for Muslim residents. Where does this end? You know, do I now have to start going to the mosque and praying 5 times a day because it'll help me better understand Muslim people in the world? It's not my religion. Why would I do it?
Well, I mean, are Muslim staff going to be invited into churches to pray with a Bible in their hand as part of an act of solidarity? Is it going to work? Is a shoe going to be put on the other foot? What a disastrous
Do they need to eat a pork sausage to say that they understand other people in England?
It's funny you say that, right?
They need to erect a Christmas tree.
On the pork sausages, I'm not being disrespectful, but when I was reading the article in the UK Telegraph?
Yeah.
And you look at the comments, and this article attracted a lot of comments, and I probably spent 2 minutes just reading comments, and a lot of them were to that point that, well, if you want to ask us to adopt your practices, then come on, adopt ours, and the hypocrisy there.
Of course.
And the other thing is they're inviting police to show their solidarity. So how can you say no and not be afraid that someone somewhere will be making a black mark against you?
Well, he didn't want to show his solidarity.
He's not a team
player.
player.
I mean, you know, Britain is a Christian country, and unfortunately the Christianity element has just been absolutely whittled away. I think this is disastrous at a time when police over in the UK are under so much scrutiny for their 2-tier policing in the wake, of course, of the Henry Novak incident. Right now, I think that police should be focusing on policing, arresting people, charging people, doing their jobs and not pandering to the diversity, inclusion nonsense. The other thing is that police are there to serve people equally, right? They're not there to observe faith. That is not their job. It's not the role of a police officer. And no religion should be getting special treatment over any other religion.
And to show solidarity doesn't mean you have to participate. It simply means, you know what, we're different religions. I disagree fundamentally with you and your religion, but I'm your friend. I watch out for you. I look after you. I take care of you. Yeah. Solidarity is that. It's not participating in ceremonies that have no relevance.
It's
or
mutual
caring.
respect. It's
But also,
mutual respect.
where does it end? I mean, so you do your fasting to sympathise with your Muslim colleagues, then you'll have to give up eating beef because the Hindus, of course, believe that the cows are sacred. You'll have to go along with the Seventh-day Adventists and stop celebrating Christmas for a year because, you've got to muck in with the rest of it.
Next minute, we're baptising everybody.
Well, I know. If you follow this logically, you'd be doing it for every religion, right? And it would just become absolutely unworkable. Yeah. I just don't get why
the king is he's changed his official title to multi-faith.
Well, that's it.
So
Correct.
don't forget,
Rots at the top.
King Charles can do it. Anyone can certainly do it. Let's just go to Victoria very quickly there, the crime capital of Australia. And, gee, it just gets absolutely worse. Police there are being forced off the beat. Why? Because of a catastrophic error in a new IT system in the court. The Herald Sun has revealed that this IT system, responsible for managing more than 700,000 court listings every year, had plunged courts into chaos, forcing magistrates to resort to using pen and paper and grinding cases to a halt. And now officers say that they are buried in hours of extra administration, undermining efforts by the government and the Chief Commissioner to make Victorians safe. It's prompted the Police Association to initiate crisis talks with the force. Police sources said the system, which was only launched in June, was forcing major hold-ups in investigating crimes. Cops are having to plug into data entry clerks and it is just wasting their time and taking them off the beat. Another day in Victoria. No wonder that state cannot get anything right. Pen and paper at the court system, and now the IT system is taking officers off the beat, not able to deal with youth crime, not able to deal with the issues going on across that state because of an IT system.
You'd think when you ponied up $160 million, and this, by the way, was meant to cost $90 million, this system, so they paid an extra $70 million for a system that doesn't work. Oh. You've got magistrates skipping lunch so they can go and put in stuff by pen and paper. They've got a backlog as big as it is, and they've got the coppers having to go through all of this. This is just basic stuff.
We should not be surprised. This is a government that spent $1 billion on their MyKey system for public transport.
That's right.
And it's almost completely redundant. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll look at what's making headlines tomorrow. Remember how the government said they were going to help new home buyers? Well, it seems like they've made new home buyers' lives a lot worse. That's coming up next. Welcome back to the program. Let's take a look at what's making headlines tomorrow. And we'll start with the Daily Telegraph, which has as its main story a story carried by most of tomorrow's papers. That, of course, is the start of Alan Jones' criminal trial. Jock shock reads the headline. Radio King's accuser. Jones groped me, kissed me and told me he loved me. The story reads that a former promising athlete has told a court Alan Jones kissed him on the mouth in a chomping action that covered his face from his nose to his chin, and on another occasion grabbed him on the penis while he was driving the Radio King to his Southern Highlands farm. Complainant Jay was the first to be called in Jones' high-stakes trial, in which he has pleaded not guilty to 20 counts of indecent assault and 2 of sexual touching. I suggest that news story will carry on for the rest of the week and probably be on the front pages pretty much every day. The other interesting story on the front page of tomorrow's Telegraph, Labor sets off negative equity bomb. More than 34,000 first home buyers are at risk of a $2.2 billion wipeout amid a cooling housing market. Coalition analysts estimate tens of thousands of Australians who bought with Labor's 5% deposit scheme are at risk of falling into negative equity. According to ABS data, about 61,000 first home buyers got a home loan between October 25 and March this year. In the first 3 months of 2026, the average loan was $614,000, while Labor was planning to introduce new housing taxes in January 2026. They were also willing younger people into bigger and bigger mortgages. That's a line from Angus Taylor, and it's a pretty devastating line.
Yeah, I mean, if you just purchased a property in the last couple of months, you're now in negative equity. You'd be absolutely kicking yourself because you have lost out on potentially, tens of thousands of dollars. And it's all thanks to Labor's broken promises. And it's just getting worse. People say, oh, yeah, but this is a time to enter the market. House prices are low. People don't have the money. People still don't have the money in this cost of living crisis to go and purchase a home.
It's great for the first-time buyer, clearly, isn't it? And people are afraid to enter the market at the moment because no one wants to be the person who buys at the top and then obviously watches their asset dwindle. But it's a game of sort of cat and mouse now about, well, how far can this go? So why would I enter now if it's just going to keep going because I want to buy at the bottom of the market? Yep. But how will we ever really know where the bottom of the market is if no one is keen to get into it? It's a much larger mess than I think they predicted it would. Well, clearly more than they predicted, but the fact that they didn't kind of see some of this coming in the first place is the real issue.
Well, no, it's all about their own coffers, isn't it? Let's have a look at the Herald Sun. Showbiz to sell hell is the headline. Ralph Carr once rubbed shoulders with some of the biggest names in Aussie sport and showbiz, but now the manager to the stars is rubbing shoulders with criminals as he sits in jail awaiting sentence for raping a young woman at his multi-million-dollar home. Of course, he was once married to Tina Arena, and his clients included Dustin Martin there. So that's been a huge, huge story today. But also down the bottom, Ben bounced, but polls still dire. Labor remains on track to lose November's state election despite a change of leader, and new polling showing its first political bounce in months. The exclusive Freshwater strategy poll taken in the days immediately after last week's coup that saw Ben Carroll replace Jacinta Allen as Premier shows the change has arrested Labor's slide but tips the coalition to win government for the first time since 2010. And that state is in dire need of some change. But I think that the Liberal Party should be quite buoyed by this, that their messaging is actually getting through. And I think that Jess Wilson has had a wonderful week, really pushing that messaging through. Same Labor, different leader, and I think it's clearly having an impact.
I think, though, if you were Laborists, particularly if you were Ben Carroll and the right, you'd be saying that's an indication that they've got their job done as well. Because if it saves some of the furniture on the way out, I think they would be pleased with that result compared to what it otherwise could have been too.
You would expect them to get a bit of a bounce, right? Because Daniel Andrews, Jacinta Allen were hated. That the next poll will be the one that really will show how this is going to play out.
Indeed. On the front of the Australian tomorrow, interesting little story here, workplace diversity at $195,000 a job. I'll take one of those, thanks. At $32.1 million, a federal program to help the long-term unemployed get into work under the banner of workplace diversity has placed 55 people in almost 2 years at a cost of nearly $195,000 per job. The Real Jobs, Real Wages scheme, announced in May 2024, gives money to employers to hire people, quote, at risk of long-term unemployment, and promises employers a more diverse and inclusive workplace. The pilot scheme offered employers up to $15,000 to hire eligible employees. The Department of Employment and Workplace Relations advertised this as a way to support inclusive recruitment and boost community connections and a more diverse and inclusive workplace. But given it's 55 jobs over $32.1 million, $195,000 a job has been spent on this scheme.
Wow.
Jeez, must be hard work getting that done.
Gee, not a bad day out. If you get it for some. But I don't know, Caleb, are you diverse enough for such a role?
Well, I'm incredibly diverse. What are you talking about?
Very, very.
I am the most diverse person possibly available for the job.
It's funny, people criticise Pauline Hanson and say, well, how are you going to fund all of the things you're proposing? Well, I reckon one nation could close their eyes, spin around 1,000 times, throw a rock, and wherever it lands, whatever government policy, just cut that.
Yeah.
The country would miss nothing and we'd save a whole lot of money. Gee, there's a lot being wasted.
By the way, I am a persecuted minority. I just want you to know.
How so?
Well, I'm a right-winger who lives in the inner west of Sydney. So,
You're one of only a few.
James Morrow and me. I think we qualify under the diversity clause, don't we?
There you go. You are DEI.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
I love
Fair
that.
point. Do you feel persecuted?
Oh, it's terrible. Terrible. No, I do enjoy living in my little slice of the world, but, you just be wary of the neighbours sometimes.
All right, the front page of tomorrow's Advertiser. Celebs get sunburn. Sports stars Kyle Chambers, Michael Clark and Brendan Favola are among celebrities unwittingly drafted to spruik solar products that have been the subject of an unprecedented rise in complaint. Now, Caleb, you're the newspaper man among us, having been a chief of staff. I think that's I mean, I get sunburn and sunscreen isn't that sexy, right? So you've got to find some celebs to make the story bounce a little bit. That's pretty unfair to these guys, making them the story.
No, I don't know. If you're spruiking a product... and that product is in a bit of trouble, of course it reflects on you. I mean, the reason that a company pays someone to endorse their product is because they want the reputation of that celebrity. So it does then kind of weigh on the reputation of the celebrity who's endorsed the product, does it not?
Yeah.
It's always
been a good solar product that would reflect on you. The problem was it wasn't reflecting.
Very good, Jane.
I thought that headline said Caleb's get sunburn.
Well, they do get sunburn in my experience, very quickly and very easily.
Is that because you're a DEI?
Well, maybe, yes, that because I'm so white, you know. It's one of my disabilities because I'm white that I burn so easily. If I don't put the sunscreen on the minute I go in the sun, I'm cooked, literally.
I feel like you'd be one of those zinc blokes that just put it around your nose.
No.
I'd love to see that.
I'm not warny.
That would be the highlight if I ever saw you looking like that, Caleb. I'd love that. Let's take a look at the...
Are we going to do the Courier Mail, Danica?
Back yourself up over there.
The Courier Mail. Down at the bottom, it says, worker attacked by a robot. Sorry.
You want me to read it, Danica?
A factory worker has suffered broken ribs after a malfunctioning robot knocked him into a machine that tried to pack him ready for shipment.
Jeez.
What the heck?
I don't know what to say about that.
I don't know either, but there's certainly a workplace health and safety claim to be made there. A robot
tried to pack him,
knocked him into a packing machine.
I mean, the robot... I've been warning that this is happening. The robots are rising up, and now they're going to put you in a box and send you away? Good grief.
Definitely. All right, we're going to go to a break. Now, last week I was saying ageing pop stars should be banned from performing. I'm going to prove my point after this. Well, over the weekend, it was the first game of the Women's Pro Baseball League in the United States. So they needed to sing the anthem and have someone substantial to lead the crowd in that moment. So they chose Martha Reeves. And, well, why wouldn't you choose Martha Reeves? The lead singer of the Motown group Martha and the Vandellas is famous for songs like Dancing in the Street, which was covered by Mick Jagger and David Bowie. And she was even put into the Rock and Rollers Hall of Fame. So why wouldn't you get her to sing the anthem? Well, simple. At 85 years of age, she can't sing anymore.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch.
Now, if you haven't switched off your television and you're still with us, thank you for bearing with us through that. The remarkable thing about that is she's done what no one else has been able to do. She actually united Republicans and Democrats because everybody agreed that was horrendous.
That was really bad. That was terrible. I love it that the crowd were laughing as well. They just
How is that real?
How did they get her up?
It just, you know, it takes me right back to Meatloaf at the AFL Grand Final. That is so bad.
Pop stars should stop when they turn 60. I rest my case.
Here we go again. No, we're not starting. We're not having this debate again.
We're not. I just won the debate.
No, you.
I just.
You found one woman who can't sing, and then you're like, that's why no one should sing.
No, exactly. Now, do you want the house tour? As Sabrina Carpenter sang, she at least has a good voice. Do you want the house tour? I could take you to the first, second, third floor. Well, that's what Ben Carroll, the new Victorian Premier, is singing.
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning, Grace.
How are you going?
I'm going well.
What does a typical Saturday morning usually look like in the Carroll house?
I'm an early riser, so up at 5, take the dog for a walk, get a coffee for the wife.
In one sentence, how would you describe your leadership?
I'm relatable, reliable, and hardworking.
What? Can anyone please explain why Ben Carroll was giving us a house tour?
I'm reliable.
I'm reliable. It sounds like a used car salesman. Oh, get your car. I'm ready for you. That was terrible. Well, why? Well, why? What's the point of it? We don't want to see your house, Ben. We want to see what you're going to do for the state.
If you're relatable, you don't have to say, I'm
relatable. I know. He's so wooden, you know? Like, that might work if the guy had some personality. but he just doesn't seem to have a great deal of it. But, of course, if he steps out of his front door at his home in Melbourne, he may well be confronted by potholes that are just... the roads in Victoria are shocking at the moment. I've been on them recently. Absolutely awful. But never fear, Sonia Terpstra, Labor MP in Victoria, she says people actually like the potholes.
Residents who don't want it resealed because they don't like traffic going down it, so they're quite happy to have it full of potholes, might I add. So not everyone's on board with your pothole thing. They actually like it full of potholes. Yes, actually it is.
What?
That is the Liberal campaign ad.
People love potholes.
Sonia Terpstra has been on the Terps.
Well, how else do you come up with those lines? Oh.
That's all we've got time for. Stick around. Coming up is the Rita Pennehy Show. Good night.